You ever feel like something's watching you, even when you're alone? Not the kind of fear that jumps at you from the dark, but the quiet kind. The kind that hums under your skin and whispers when everything else is silent. That's what I felt the first time I heard about the cemetery. And it only got worse from there. I wasn't looking for trouble. I wasn't chasing ghosts or trying to prove some theory. I just got a letter. A real one. No return address, just my name written in a familiar, steady hand I hadn't seen in years. It was from Professor Kamal Yildirim, my mentor, the man who vanished 10 years ago without a word. The letter was strange, rambling, like it had been written under pressure, or fear. He told me he'd found something ancient. A place where names no longer mattered. A village no one could find unless they were meant to. He said it was in central Anatolia, far off any road or map. He called it Oluova, the dead plain. He said if I followed the directions enclosed, I'd understand everything he couldn't explain. And at the bottom, he wrote, "If you hear them whisper your name, it's already too late." I should have laughed. Should have thrown it away. But instead, I booked a flight, rented a car, and drove into the middle of nowhere. 4 hours, the road narrowed. The sky seemed to press lower. Every town I passed looked more abandoned than the last. People stared when I asked about the place. Some laughed nervously. Others just turned and walked away. One old man muttered something under his breath as I passed him. I couldn't catch it all, but I swear he said, "He'll never come back with his name." It was sunset when I found the village. Oluova wasn't marked. No signs, no welcome. Just a cluster of crumbling stone houses in a shallow valley. It looked like no one had lived there in decades. Maybe centuries. But someone had lit a fire in one of the chimneys. Smoke curled into the sky like a signal. I parked near a cracked fountain and got out. Everything was quiet. Not peaceful quiet, dead quiet. The kind that feels like the world's holding its breath. That's when I met her. An old woman, standing barefoot in the dirt like she'd been waiting for me. "You're late," she said. I didn't ask how she knew me. She gave me a room in her house. Said I could stay as long as I didn't ask too many questions. Said the cemetery was just beyond the trees, but I should wait before going. "Let them smell you first," she said. "Let them know you're not ready." I laughed. I shouldn't have. That night, I heard whispers outside my window. Low, like wind through teeth. I pressed my ear to the glass and heard something I'll never forget. It said my name. Slow. Careful. Like tasting it. I didn't sleep. The next day, I walked to the cemetery. It sat on a low hill, surrounded by gnarled trees and tall grass that didn't sway, even in the wind. The stones were packed tight, hundreds of them, maybe more. And not one of them had a name. No birth dates. No epitaphs. No symbols of faith or family. Just spirals. Each stone bore a single spiral, carved deep into the surface. Smooth, cold, almost alive under your fingers. I stared at one for too long. Felt dizzy. Felt seen. The ground beneath the graves didn't feel like earth. It felt hollow, like it could open up at any second. I turned to leave, and that's when I saw him. A man, standing by the edge of the cemetery. Grey coat. Wide-brimmed hat. Motionless. He didn't wave. Didn't move. The sun was behind him, but there was no shadow. I blinked, and he was gone. Back at the house, the old woman didn't ask what I saw. She only handed me a cup of tea and said, "He remembers everyone who stares. Don't give him too long." I tried to laugh it off. Told myself I was tired. Jet lag. Imagination. But that night, I dreamed of open graves. Inside each one was a mirror. Not a body, just a mirror. And in every mirror, I saw myself, without a face. Just skin. No eyes. No mouth. Nothing. I woke up choking. My hands were bleeding. My fingernails had torn into my palms while I slept. There were scratches on the door. Deep ones. And in the wood, freshly carved, was a spiral. I stopped recording audio after that. The last time I played it back, I heard something that broke me. It was my voice. Not me speaking, but my voice, saying things I'd never said. I give my name to the keeper. I surrender what I was. I don't want to be remembered. I shut off the recorder and smashed it. The dreams got worse. They stopped being dreams. I'd wake up in the cemetery. No idea how I got there. Barefoot. Covered in dirt. One time I woke up kneeling before a gravestone with my forehead pressed against the spiral. I tried to leave. The car was gone. The road was gone. There was only forest now. Dense, endless, and wrong. She told me I had a choice. "You can give it up," she said. "Your name. Your past. Let it all go. And they'll leave you be." "What happens if I don't?" I asked. She didn't answer. Just looked sad. I don't remember what happened the last night. Just flashes. Footsteps in the grass. Laughter that wasn't human. Hands pulling me under. When I woke up, I was in a hospital. Miles away. No ID. No phone. No wallet. Just the clothes on my back and a notebook in my pocket. The notebook was empty, except for one page. A spiral, drawn in black ink. And under it, in handwriting I didn't recognize. "You were never named." I checked every document, every record, my passport, my birth certificate, my university ID. My name was gone. Erased. Where it used to be, there were blank lines, missing fields, glitches. No one remembered me. Not even my mother. I've been living in the cracks ever since. Watching the shadows. Listening for the whispers. And I know he's still out there. Waiting for me to forget everything. So if you ever hear your name in the silence, if you ever dream of mirrors and spirals, walk away. Before he remembers you too. I thought distance would protect me. That if I left the village, crossed borders, maybe even continents, I could put enough space between myself and what happened in Oluova. But the thing is, once you're seen, you're never really unseen again. Once your name has been tasted by something older than language, something beneath stone and soil, you carry it like rot under your skin. It doesn't matter where you run. It only matters that you were noticed. I tried to live normally after the hospital. Moved to a new city. Got a job shelving books in a forgotten university archive where no one asked questions. I didn't talk much. Didn't look people in the eye. I thought if I kept my head down, if I never spoke of it again, it would fade. But memory isn't a place you can leave. It follows. I first noticed it in mirrors. Reflections that didn't quite match. Delays. My head turning a split second after my body did. My eyes blinking once too often. A second mouth forming just as I turned away. I stopped using mirrors altogether. Brushed my teeth in the dark. Shaved by feel. Then came the whispers again. Not outside. Not on recordings. Inside my ears. They never came when people were around. Only when I was alone. In my apartment. In bathroom stalls. In stairwells between floors, where echoes moved like things with limbs. They didn't call my name. Not anymore. They asked a question. Do you still remember? It always came the same way. Soft. Gentle. Like a lullaby sung by something that had never been human. At first, I screamed. Then I begged. Then I ignored. But ignoring only made it louder. One night, I woke up with dirt under my fingernails again. I hadn't left my bed, and yet my soles were stained, raw like I'd been walking miles barefoot. My apartment smelled of ash. The windows were open. There were muddy footprints on the ceiling. They weren't mine. I tried therapy. I tried priests. I even reached out to a Sufi mystic I'd read about in one of Professor Yildirim's old journals. He told me something I'll never forget. You are not haunted by a ghost, he said. You are haunted by absence. A thing that once was and no longer should be. You were marked by forgetting. I asked what I could do. He only smiled. When a book is burned, the words don't vanish. They just become harder to read. I stopped going outside after that. My apartment became a prison, but at least it was quiet. Or it was, until the lights started flickering. Until shadows stopped behaving. One evening, while washing dishes, I turned around and saw someone sitting on the floor across the room. Perfectly still. Not breathing. Not moving. I didn't scream. Screaming felt pointless. He was wearing a grey coat. A wide-brimmed hat sat in his lap. His face was blank. Not faceless like smooth skin, but blank like something out of focus. Like a photograph that had been exposed to water. Blurry, leaking at the edges. I spoke. I don't know why. Maybe I thought if I acknowledged him, he'd leave. What do you want from me? His head tilted. Your name, he said, was never yours. And then he was gone. The lights came back on. My heart kept pounding for hours. I started writing everything down after that. Not in notebooks. I didn't trust paper anymore. I carved it into my walls, etched it into the baseboards, scratched it into the inside of cabinet doors. My name, over and over, like a chant. Halim Aksoy. Halim Aksoy.
Halim Aksoy.
I needed to remind the world. Remind myself. That I had existed. It didn't work. One morning, I looked in the mirror and saw nothing. Not even the wrong reflection this time. Just empty space. My body was there. My clothes. But where my head should have been, was a blur. A smear in the glass. I smashed the mirror. Bled all over the sink. The cuts didn't hurt. Nothing did anymore. And then the dreams came back. Not the graves this time. Not the mirrors. I was walking through a house I didn't recognize. A place that felt like it had been built before time. The walls were covered in spirals. Spirals within spirals. Some small enough to be fingerprints, others big enough to walk through. Voices followed me through the hallways. Laughter. Sobbing. My own voice, calling out from behind locked doors. In the dream, I opened one. Inside was a child, curled in the corner. When he looked up, he had my face. My real one. The one I hadn't seen in months. He held out his hand and said, "Don't forget me." When I woke up, the spiral was on my ceiling. That's when I decided to go back. Back to the village. Back to Oluova. I knew the roads wouldn't be the same. I knew it might not even be there anymore. But I had to try. Had to find whatever was left of me that hadn't been taken. The ticket to Turkey cost more than I could afford. I didn't care. I landed with nothing but a backpack, some cash, and a notebook full of pages I couldn't read anymore. My handwriting, once clean and sharp, had turned jagged. Foreign. Like I was writing in a language I didn't know. The drive was longer this time. The landscape unfamiliar. Even the mountains seemed taller. Like the world itself had shifted in my absence. I arrived at dusk, just like before. But this time, there was no village. The valley was empty. Just tall grass and silence. No fountain. No smoke. No houses. Just a single stone, half buried in the soil. A spiral carved into its face. I stood there for hours, not moving. Waiting. And eventually, he came. The keeper. Closer than ever now. I could see the way the air bent around him. How the wind stopped when he appeared. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. I understood. He wasn't here to chase me. He wasn't here to punish me. He was here because I had called him, by remembering, by refusing to forget. He raised his hand and pointed to the stone. There, beneath the spiral, was a single word. My name. And beneath that, another. Taken. The wind returned. The valley shifted. And I realized. I hadn't come back to reclaim anything. I had come back to give the rest of it away. I don't remember kneeling, but I must have. The ground was damp beneath my knees, and I could feel the earth breathing, slow and shallow, like it was asleep but dreaming of me. The stone in front of me still bore my name, etched deep beneath the spiral. But the letters looked wrong now. Too long. Too thin. Like they'd been stretched into place rather than written. I traced them with my fingers. The surface was cold, colder than stone should be. It burned. Not like fire, but like frostbite, silent and seeping. The keeper didn't speak again. He just stood beside me, watching. Waiting. I could feel something behind him, something larger than his shape. Like he was just the shadow of something far worse. And when I looked up, I saw the village again. It hadn't vanished. It had just moved. Or maybe I had. The buildings were still broken, still leaning, but they pulsed faintly in the dying light. Their walls were covered in fresh carvings. Spirals. Names. Some familiar. Most not. I stood, my legs shaky, and walked toward what used to be Asiai's house. But it wasn't hers anymore. It was empty. Its roof collapsed inward like a mouth closed in silence. Still, I stepped through the doorway. Inside, everything was covered in dust, except the walls. They were alive. Breathing. Every time I blinked, the spirals seemed to shift. Grow. Multiply. I ran my hand along the doorway. The wood felt warm, like skin. Something moved behind the wall. A heartbeat. No sound. Just rhythm. Ancient and steady. I whispered her name.
Asiye.
The heartbeat paused. And then the voice came. Not hers. Mine. But not the version of me that still remembered who I was. It was the voice of forgetting. You stayed too long. The door behind me slammed shut, though there was no wind. I tried to open it again. It didn't move. I tried the window. It was gone. I wasn't in the house anymore. I was underground. A tunnel. Dirt walls, packed tight. The air was too thin, like something had chewed all the oxygen out of it. Ahead of me, I could see flickers of light. Candles maybe. Or eyes. The whisper came again. This is where we go when we're not remembered. I walked. I don't know how long. Hours. Days. Time didn't mean anything there. I passed alcoves filled with things I recognized. Things that shouldn't have been here. A bracelet I lost in university. A photo I tore up after a breakup. The book I lent Professor Yildirim and never got back. Memories. Objects peeled away from time and buried. Each item pulsed with something old and hungry. One alcove was empty. My name was carved into the wall above it. The spiral next to it was cracked down the middle. Suddenly, I wasn't alone. They stepped from the shadows, one by one. Faceless figures. Some tall, some bent and broken. Each of them with hands that moved like they were remembering how to exist. And every single one wore something familiar. A hat, a scarf, shoes I knew belonged to someone once close to me. I saw my brother's jacket on one. My father's watch on another. But their faces, if you could call them that, were smooth. Mouths stitched shut by unseen hands. But still, they spoke. Not aloud. Inside. You remember us. That is your sin. You won't let us fade. You keep the door open. And through that door, we come. I wanted to scream, but the air wouldn't let me. I stumbled back, turned, ran through the tunnels until I collapsed. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the cemetery. Only now, all the graves were open. Hundreds of spirals spinning slowly on their own, as if stirred by breath that came from beneath the soil. The keeper was beside me again. His face had changed. It looked like mine. But not the way I remembered. The way I feared. Rotten at the edges. Hollow-eyed. Lips curled in a smile that didn't know how to stop. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. He leaned in. You brought yourself back. You brought us all back. He pointed at the gravestone again. Where it once said Halim Aksoy, it now read, Remembered. The spiral beside it had stilled. No longer spinning. Just watching. I heard a bell ring. Once. Twice. And the ground beneath me split. I fell. Not down, not through, but in. Inside myself. Inside the part I'd tried to forget. All my memories bled through the cracks. My first day at school. The smell of my mother's hair. The taste of rain on my tongue. A hand held in the dark. Laughter I thought I'd lost. And then, the last thing I'd wanted to remember. The day I found the letter. The moment I read the name of the village. The second I felt the first spiral curl behind my eyes. It was never about the cemetery. It was never about the dead. It was about the names. About holding on to what should be let go. About the price of memory. And the punishment for refusing to forget. I fell deeper into that hollow place inside myself, where time folded like paper and memories tangled into knots I couldn't undo. The spirals weren't just marks on stones anymore. They were prisons, cages for names, faces, moments that begged to be forgotten but refused to let go. I saw them all, every person who ever lived here, or didn't. The faceless ones. Not dead, but erased. Not forgotten, but trapped in something worse. A state between existence and oblivion, held by the keeper's will. And I realized the terrible truth. The cemetery was never about forgetting. It was about control. About who owns memory, who holds the power to erase or remember. The keeper was the last guardian of all those stolen names. He was both jailer and prisoner, bound to a duty that spanned centuries. He remembered every face, every story, even those who begged to be forgotten. And now, so did I. The faceless whispered around me, not with voices, but with the pull of absence, like a vacuum that reached into your soul. Their plea wasn't for help. It was a warning. Remember, or be forgotten. I wanted to scream, to fight, but my body was nothing but echo. I was a ghost trapped in a story I didn't want to belong to. Then the keeper spoke, this time with words, slow and deliberate. You came back because you couldn't forget. And so, you became one of us. I tried to resist, to claim my name, but it slipped through my fingers like smoke. The spirals closed around me. I felt myself unraveling, unmaking. My memories started fading, my childhood, my friends, my dreams. The faces of those I loved became blurred, then vanished. But just before I slipped away completely, a spark remained. A single word. Not mine. Not his. A voice from nowhere, from before names existed. Remember this, forgetting is a choice, but memory is forever. Then everything went black. I woke up on the edge of the village, alone. The sun was rising. The spirals on the stones were gone. The graves looked like ordinary earth. I felt lighter, empty, but free. I found my way back to the city. I tried to tell my story, but no one believed me. How could they? A cemetery of faceless souls, a keeper with no shadow, names stolen and reclaimed by a force beyond understanding. My ID was still missing. My reflection was normal again. But sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I hear it. The whisper. My name. Calling me back. Reminding me that some things are never truly forgotten.